This is Average Sports.
By your average guys.
Eric.
And Ty.
That
would be so bad.
Yeah. This is Average Sports.
Your average sports.
Average Sports.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of
You're listening to Average Sports with your average guys.
Average Sports, average guys, Eric and Ty.
And like that, we are back. It is another episode of Your Average Sports with your average guys. I'm Ty. We got Eric on the line.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Ready.
Hey-o.
Ready to go.
He is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, let me tell you. But we got a lot of sports to talk about. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you're new to the show, we are just a general recap of what's happening, all things sports, so you know that 2020 has been chock full of headlines. No, not at all. But we are there now. We're like back to somewhat of what sports are, at least for this year. We got a lot to talk about, Eric. It's been a good last couple of weeks.
Fast and furious now, man. We missed all of them in March and April and May and June. And now they're just coming, fast and furious.
Right. Drinking
like
from a fire hose, Yeah, okay, I like that one better. Mike Tyson the 90s. Yeah. All right. But before we get into all that, we got a butthole in sports. Eric, you picked out a good one. Who is it?
I picked out a good one. His name is Chris Woodward. Chris Woodward, you are the butthole in sports this week for being a butthole. You are the manager of the Texas Rangers, and your complete asinine comments about Tatis Jr. and whooping you guys up the other night is what makes you this week's butthole in sports.
Okay. More to come on that as we will make that a little bit more of our topic for the show. But let's talk about first what's happened more recently. The MLS had the return to MLS Cup recently conclude. It was down to Orlando and the Portland Timbers. Portland took home the championship, or the cup rather. It was a rather good game. It was cool to see. It was a great way to cap off an entire tournament that had no interruptions due to the pandemic. It looked like it all just went off without a hitch, so good to see. We also had another champion. That went to Colin Morikawa of the PGA Championship. That was pretty cool to see. Eric, you got any feedback on that?
No, not on the PGA Championship.
Okay, well, yeah, he's out there setting records, man. He's like the new... No, hang on. He's like the new Tiger Woods, so keep an eye on that name for sure. Let's talk NBA then, too. Playoffs have begun. Have you watched any good games?
I've certainly watched a handful of them. I mean, the Miami Heat are very impressive.
Oh, here we go.
Early on, I know.
Here we go.
I'm just saying, the Miami Heat are very impressive. And I got to be honest, okay. I have not been impressed by the Bucks.
No.
Whatsoever. Not only in the regular season games, but in these playoff games. I have not been impressed with the Bucks, and I think on an earlier episode we talked about it as well, that they just don't have that playoff experience that everyone's looking for, and that maybe they were going to get it with what happened last year, but it is already showing and glaring out there that they are not experienced enough, and Giannis can't do it himself.
Okay, a little slow out the gate, I'll give you that, but they did come back and tied up the series. They're just 1-1 against Orlando. Yeah, they scored a bunch of points. There's no way I think they're losing this series still. But for a deep
Orlando,
run, we'll see. It is questionable, sure. Miami, by the way, is up 2 games against Indiana Pacers. So, but on the flip side, going out to the West, did you see that first Laker game against Trailblazers?
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about unimpressive. I mean, that was a game that should have just been... and I think maybe there's a mental component. I don't know. Who knows why that game ended the way it did. But Portland took the distance to them, and they won. They took the first game. Now, if anyone saw the second game, yikes. That it was all Los Angeles on that one.
Yeah, that one, I think you're right. It was, pretty bad first game for the, LA Lakers there. They got beat by 7. It just didn't look good for them. It's a group of a bunch of veterans. That is not traditionally a young team. I mean, they're led by veteran players across the board. They have a couple young players like Kyle Kuzma that's going to be fantastic. But they put the whooping up on Portland in game 2, and it truly showed. And the Lakers are not a team that I worry about like I do the Bucks, simply because the majority of those players and their leader in LeBron James has clearly been there year in,
they have
year
depth.
out.
Yeah.
They don't bother me like the Bucks do, who don't have that depth, who their best player hasn't done it yet. Now, eventually always someone has to do it. LeBron James at one point had to do it himself. So I get that. But the Bucks scare me because I just don't think they're going to be good enough in a long series against some of the tougher teams in the East.
All right. Well, let's flip it over to the ice. NHL, of course, round one's already wrapping up. That's pretty crazy to think about. Some good hockey games there, and a couple of teams had stumbled as well. One to recover, though, was Tampa Bay. They got revenge after an incredible game one that they lost against Columbus.
They won.
Oh, you're right. They won in overtime on that first one.
They won that game.
Columbus tied it up on the series.
Correct.
But then ultimately Tampa Bay takes it all 4-1. Now, that was another one where a coach came out, I think, and just had nothing good to say. Or was that Carolina?
Do you mean John Tortorella, who never has anything good to say?
I probably do. Whereas I don't want to talk about these, sensitive emotions. I'm just, be healthy, and then
he's very great.
He's gone.
He's the NHL version of Greg Popovich.
Okay,
doesn't or Bill Belichick. Like, he doesn't give any answers when he loses. Yeah, he's a sourpuss.
You're right. And then what's the deal with that? So, again, that's actually kind of our topic. I think is all about sore losership. Just,
we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. How about a little MLB roundup, though? Some teams are back. I mean, Miami has been playing games. St. Louis now is back. They've actually completed something like 7 games now since last time we recorded. However, now the Mets find themselves in trouble. So the bug, if you will, the literal bug, has been going across the league. And here's yet kind of another example of when you're out of the bubble, you're going to experience stuff like this. So a little crazy. But overall, any reactions from MLB that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the big ones is, I think we talked about this on the last episode, that Major League Baseball did not do this right, especially when you look at NHL having 0 reported COVID tests. The MLS is now completed, and they had no problems once they got into the bubble.
Right.
The teams that were infected didn't even come. And the NBA has done very, very well and had no issues as far as reporting tests. But the MLB consistently and time again has proven, now with 2 teams already, and now it looks like on the verge of a third, is about to become a problem. And it's a little, it's a little worrisome that they haven't really been able to get this fixed. And it's like, at what point in the season is it then just going to force a team to forfeit the rest of their games?
Right.
And we're almost at that point. I feel the Cardinals were pushing
they were
that
so close
already.
Yeah. Right.
And, they had only played 3 games, and they missed a bunch, and they're having to play almost every single one of their games has to be one of those 7-inning doubleheaders, which, by the way, if it's a doubleheader game, I love.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is fantastic. That's a great rule change if it's a doubleheader. Get them in quick, baby.
Yeah.
Let's do this quick.
Okay, I did actually want to ask about that, but does it change then the validity of the win or loss, I guess, if you're putting in less innings? Everyone else is putting in more innings, and you're saying, well, we're going to play 2 games, you're going to knock them out today. On one hand, that's also a little bit more work in that single day, and you're compressing your season, but it's not necessarily the same sport. You're playing 2 less, you have 6 fewer outs you have to make in order to win a game.
Yeah, I mean, I get the argument, but think about it. If they were in the 7th inning already and the rain rolled in, what are they going to do? Are they going to play those last 6 outs?
Yeah, but that's a lot more one-off. Whereas if it's a doubleheader, which there are going to be a lot, to kind of put in perspective, St. Louis has only played 14 games, where the Dodgers, I think, have played the most at 27. I'm looking at it. Looks like the Mets are in a good shape to actually miss some games at 26 games played. So there's some teams on the right track, and then you got a team like St. Louis that if all it takes is one long weekend to miss these doubleheaders, and then where are you? Where are you going to find yourself? There's not a whole lot of time to make
if the Cardinals go through it again, I mean, that's part of the problem. But,
point being, though, they have to
season.
Yeah, but they have to play so many of these doubleheaders.
Doubleheaders. I have no problem with that.
To me, I think that's
the season was already too compressed. You can't do 9-inning doubleheaders anyway in this short of a season. They have a quarter of the amount of days off. You can't do that to them as far as physically expecting them to play. So cutting the doubleheaders when they would come up or happen, I think, is completely fine. But I like to see that rule make it to the regular season. I'm just saying, baseball, catch up with the time and get it with the viewership.
I am
Stop
not
being
going to
old man,
lie.
get off my lawn.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I love seeing like a matinee game, and then there's an evening game right to follow against the same team, and they shorten the game. I think that's actually has been a pretty neat thing to see. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if some people are kind of poo-pooing the fact that you're playing less baseball, therefore should you put kind of an asterisk to your record at the end of the season? Should that change anything where other teams didn't afford the ability to? Because I think there's some pretty remarkable stats that in the last 2 or 3 innings of a baseball game, a lot of games get decided in those innings because that's when you're in the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see it. But in a regular season, I mean, how often are teams playing doubleheaders? What do they play?
Of course.
5 to 7 a year?
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. I'm with you, though. I'd like to see more doubleheaders. But with that, on a little subtext of, being a sore loser, let's talk about our topic here, and that is mainly around, like, the unspoken rules. We've talked about this, Eric. We've been down this road. So let's address, though, once again, let's beat this horse, because I'm sure some people have maybe not heard that episode anyway. We're really focusing in on, like, why don't we do this? Break down what happened with Fernando Tatis Jr., who is an all-star right now. The kid is crushing it.
Yes.
It's amazing. Good for him out there in San Diego. Take us through what happened the other day.
Okay, so we already mentioned our butthole in sports, Mr. Chris Woodward, manager of the Texas Rangers. Padres and the Rangers were playing each other, and in San Diego. It is bottom of the 8th. The score, I believe, is 10-3, and the bases are loaded. Tatis Jr. is up to the plate, and it's a 3-0 count. And the pitch gets served up. I mean, and we're talking this big old meaty, serve up of a fastball down the middle of the plate. Really just trying to get that strike.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, when it's a 3-0 count, you typically see the batter take. However, this big meatball that came down the middle of the plate, Tatis Jr. said, F that. I'm watching this ball way out of the park, and crushed it and hit a grand slam. And so they added, instead of being up 7, now they're up 11.
Great.
And, Chris Woodward had a little hissy fit, got his, salty tears running down his cheeks there, and, made some comments that, that's not the way that the game used to be played, and it's changing, and blah, 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 cry, cry, cry. I'm a little baby. And he's forgetting and failing to understand these are professional athletes. This is not Little League. If you don't like it, play better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I don't think there's much.
About this.
So between you and I, unfortunately, I was going to want to try and take the position of the alternate, and I can't on this one. Man, this was like the World Cup, the Women's World Cup game when they were playing, who was that, Thailand? Or
yes.
when they just stomped them 11-0, just embarrassed them. That is the top. Yeah, that is the top stage. I don't care if you say there's some unspoken rules across any sport, and there's just certain ways you kind of play it. You keep integrity, but at the same time, you're talking about playing the actual game. The objective is score as many runs and win the freaking game. And if you're talking about a 3-0 count, what were the chances that the pitcher was just going to walk them accidentally? You think that pitcher was purposefully getting in a 3-0 count with bases loaded and they're down 7 runs? Come on.
Yeah.
So Fernando just took advantage of a guy who was struggling, and what is wrong with that?
And
embarrassing.
And a couple of things that I want to point out here about that. Look, there are some places for unspoken rules in sports, and quite frankly, they have, in my opinion, they typically center around injuries. For example, in soccer, if someone gets injured on the field and is severely injured, the other team will kick the ball out so that medical attention can get to them. When the play comes back in, the other team will just throw it right to them. Okay, that's a great use of an unspoken rule because there was an injury to a player.
Yeah.
In this situation, it does not call for an unspoken rule.
No.
The get off my lawn people in baseball, grow up or stop watching the sport, because at the end of the day, these players are paid on production. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
Tatis Jr. makes his money by doing things like hitting grand slams.
Right.
That's the way it is. And if you don't like it, Chris Woodward, make sure that you put the right pitcher in there to not get down 3 balls to 0 strikes.
There you
Or
go.
maybe play better in the first 8 innings so you're not down 7 runs.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is just a projection of him being just upset at his club, not getting the job done. I think very solid points there, Eric. And yeah, we win this argument because there is no counterpoint to this. You're just wrong if you think otherwise.